Emma and Jason never imagined a few hours of drinking could turn into a nightmare. But leaving their baby alone in a scorching car changed everything in an instant. The morning began quietly in a neighborhood where life usually moved slowly, each house a mirror of the one beside it. Neat lawns and carefully trimmed hedges signaling a sense of order. Sunlight poured across the streets, reflecting off windows and glinting on parked cars. In the driveway of one modest home, a small car sat idle, its windows tightly closed. Inside, a baby slept in a car seat, unaware of the heat beginning to build around them. The child's tiny chest rose and fell with soft, steady breaths, the world beyond the car seeming distant and unimportant. The parents, preoccupied with plans that had nothing to do with the child, had left home with an assumption that the hours ahead would be harmless. Their minds were already elsewhere, fixated on the lure of alcohol and the escape it promised. By the time the sun had fully risen, the temperature inside the vehicle had begun to climb, each ray of sunlight turning the car into a small enclosed oven. The baby stirred slightly, small movements unnoticed through the tinted windows. Outside, the neighborhood hummed with the usual activities. A jogger passed by, headphones in place, oblivious to the danger waiting just feet away. Mail carriers delivered letters, unaware of the peril that existed in a single parked car. Birds flew from tree to tree, chirping and singing, a sharp contrast to the silent, growing heat inside the vehicle. A few neighbors had caught glimpses of the car when they stepped outside, noticing the unusual quiet or the small shadow of a sleeping child pressed against the window. Their concern was fleeting, tempered by disbelief. How could someone forget a baby on a warm day? Perhaps it was a momentary lapse, or maybe they assumed the parents were nearby. Life in the suburb often moved so predictably that the thought of danger rarely lingered. The baby's small body, however, was already beginning to experience the first effects of the rising heat. The skin felt warmer to the touch through the fabric of the car seat, and breaths were becoming slightly faster. Each moment counted, though it was invisible to the casual observer walking past, preoccupied with errands, coffee, or their phones. As time ticked on, the danger inside the car grew, a silent threat that seemed both ordinary and extraordinary. The parents, blissfully unaware, laughed and talked at a local bar, their excitement blurring the reality they had left behind. In the house, rooms lay empty, toys scattered across floors, and bottles and bags hinted at hurried departures. Outside, shadows shifted as the sun moved across the sky, touching the metal roof of the parked car with relentless heat. Within, the baby's soft murmurs began, tiny noises that could barely escape the confines of the vehicle but marked the first signs of distress. The world continued around them, oblivious, while the minutes stretched dangerously long, each one intensifying the risk. The quiet morning held a tension unrecognized by the neighborhood, the serene scene hiding the urgency inside the small car. No one could predict how quickly moments of carelessness could escalate, how an ordinary day could turn into a near tragedy. The baby, innocent and unaware, rested in a silent struggle for survival, while the parents' absence, filled with careless indulgence, set the stage for a nightmare that would soon explode into the awareness of everyone around. Time was running out, and the seemingly normal morning was only the calm before a storm. By midday, the heat inside the small car had become unbearable. The sun, now high and relentless, had turned the vehicle into an oven, trapping warmth that rose steadily, pressing against the windows and metal frame. The baby, once sleeping peacefully, now began to stir more noticeably. Tiny hands fumbled against the straps of the car seat and faint whimpers escaped, muffled by the fabric and closed windows. Each breath became faster, shallower, as the body struggled to cope with the rising temperature. Outside, the neighborhood was lively in the usual way. Children played on lawns, neighbors walked dogs, and the hum of daily life carried on, unaware of the silent danger inside the car. The parents, far removed from reality, were caught in a haze of alcohol and distraction. At a nearby bar, laughter and the clinking of glasses filled the air, drowning out any thoughts of responsibility they might have carried with them. Hours passed in a blur, their focus entirely on themselves, convinced that a short absence would be harmless. They had underestimated the fragility of the tiny life left behind, the speed at which heat could turn a routine day into a crisis. Meanwhile, the baby's discomfort grew. The skin, damp with sweat, clung to the fabric of the car seat, and the cries became more urgent, though still faint to anyone outside the vehicle. Passers-by began to notice the car, first with subtle unease, then with growing concern. The sight of a small, quiet child trapped behind windows that glimmered in the sun drew attention. A jogger slowed, glancing toward the car, unsure at first whether to intervene. A neighbor watering their lawn paused, squinting through the heat haze, recognizing the signs of danger. The realization hit slowly at first. A baby alone, unattended, and increasingly distressed in the heat. Panic crept in as people realized that action was needed. Phones were pulled from pockets, calls were made, and the first attempts at intervention began. As emergency services were summoned, the baby's condition worsened. Inside the car, breaths were shallow and irregular, tiny limbs trembling with the strain. The heat pressed relentlessly, turning the interior into a cage of suffocating warmth. Even through tinted windows, the signs were clear to trained eyes, a life teetering on the edge, fragile and vulnerable. Meanwhile, the parents remained oblivious, their laughter continuing far away, unaware of the growing alarm just blocks from their location. Time was slipping away, each second bringing the baby closer to a critical point. The tension around the vehicle intensified. Neighbors gathered, some pacing, some peering cautiously through windows, all aware of the severity of the situation. The small crowd's anxiety grew, as sirens in the distance signaled the approach of fire and medical personnel. The quiet morning had transformed into a scene of high stakes, a race against the invisible clock inside the car. As the first responders arrived, ready to act, the precarious balance between life and tragedy hung in the air. Inside the vehicle, the baby's struggle continued, the tiny body fighting against an environment designed for nothing but harm. The unfolding crisis would soon reveal the consequences of carelessness, the result of choices made in ignorance, and the sharp reality that even a few hours of neglect could bring a family and a community to the brink of disaster. By the time emergency responders arrived, the tension around the small car had reached a breaking point. Firefighters worked quickly, prying open the doors and lifting the baby from the searing interior. The child's tiny body was limp, drenched in sweat, and gasping for air. A stark contrast to the vibrant life that had filled the car only hours before. Paramedics moved with precision, immediately assessing the baby's condition, wrapping them in cool blankets, and rushing to the waiting ambulance. The streets, moments ago calm and quiet, were now alive with flashing lights and urgent activity, neighbors craning their necks to witness the rescue. The reality of what had almost occurred hit the crowd like a sudden, cold wave. Inside the ambulance, medical personnel fought to stabilize the baby. Monitors beeped steadily, each sound a reminder of the fragility of life. The infant's temperature was dangerously high, the heart rate elevated, and tiny fingers trembled as the body struggled to recover. The medical team worked tirelessly, adjusting IVs, providing oxygen, and monitoring every vital sign with a keen eye. Each careful movement was deliberate, each decision a matter of life and death. Outside, the parents finally received word of the emergency, their intoxicated haze replaced by a dawning horror. The laughter and carelessness that had defined their morning evaporated, replaced by panic, shame, and disbelief. The realization of what they had done, and nearly lost, hit them with crushing force. Meanwhile, investigators began documenting the scene. Photographs were taken, evidence collected, and the timeline reconstructed. The car, once ordinary and unremarkable, had become the center of a near-tragic story. Observers recounted what they had seen: the small whimpers, the heat radiating off the metal, the growing concern that had led them to call for help. Every detail mattered, each piece of information a crucial part of understanding how neglect and poor choices had combined to create a dangerous situation. The narrative of the morning, initially so mundane, was now unfolding as a cautionary tale. Hospital staff continued their work with relentless focus. The baby, under constant observation, began showing signs of improvement. Color returned to the cheeks, breathing steadied, and tiny fingers slowly relaxed. Though the fight was far from over, each small victory brought relief to those who had feared the worst. In the waiting room, neighbors and witnesses shared what they knew, their accounts mixing concern, anger, and relief. The community, once distant and unaware, had become intimately involved in the unfolding story. By evening, the parents faced the immediate consequences of their actions. The legal system moved quickly to respond to the incident, and charges were considered as investigators reviewed the neglect and recklessness that had led to the crisis. The community's shock transformed into outrage, the story spreading through news outlets and social media, capturing attention far beyond the neighborhood. The baby, once trapped in a dangerous heat, now lay in a hospital bed, a fragile symbol of survival and the critical importance of responsibility. The events of the day would leave lasting marks, both emotional and legal, proving how quickly a single decision could transform a routine day into a near tragedy, forever altering the lives of everyone involved. In the days that followed, the incident continued to ripple through the community. Investigators pieced together every detail, working to understand how a moment of negligence had nearly cost a life. The timeline revealed a pattern of carelessness, small decisions that, when combined, had escalated into a life-threatening situation. The parents' choice to leave the baby unattended, even for a short period, exposed deep lapses in judgment and responsibility. Neighbors and friends recalled prior incidents, minor neglect, unexplained absences, and moments where the child's safety had been compromised. These recollections painted a broader picture of a household struggling with priorities and accountability, a reality that only became clear in the light of near tragedy. Social services became involved almost immediately. Caseworkers examined the home, the environment the baby had been living in, and the patterns of care or lack thereof. Each finding raised further concerns, adding layers of urgency to the situation. The baby, now stable in the hospital, was shielded from the chaos, but the question of long-term safety loomed large. Reports from the hospital highlighted the dangers the child had faced: elevated body temperature, rapid heartbeat, and the strain on vital organs caused by prolonged heat exposure. Medical professionals described the situation as critical, emphasizing how even minutes could have changed the outcome. The community listened in shock, grappling with the fragile line between survival and tragedy. News of the incident spread rapidly, drawing attention from beyond the neighborhood. Local media outlets reported the story, highlighting both the miraculous rescue and the recklessness that had caused it. Social media amplified outrage, users debating parenting responsibilities, legal consequences, and the societal factors that allowed such negligence to occur. The parents, now facing intense public scrutiny, were confronted not only with their legal consequences, but with the judgment and disappointment of an entire community. Their actions, once hidden behind a facade of routine life, were now on display, dissected and criticized at every turn. Community leaders began organizing responses. Neighborhood associations and parenting groups issued warnings about the dangers of leaving children unattended, especially in hot cars. Public awareness campaigns highlighted the physiological risks of heat exposure for infants, aiming to prevent future tragedies. Schools and local organizations held discussions on child safety, emphasizing the responsibility adults carry when caring for vulnerable lives. The incident became a case study, a chilling example of how negligence, combined with distraction and poor judgment, could lead to near-catastrophic consequences. The parents' legal journey advanced alongside the child's recovery. Investigators compiled evidence, witness statements, and medical reports to build a case that reflected the gravity of the situation. The community remained deeply involved, attending hearings, offering support to the baby's recovery, and voicing concerns over accountability. The story, once confined to a single car and a few streets, had expanded into a powerful narrative about responsibility, consequences, and the fragility of life. While the baby began showing steady signs of health, the emotional and social scars of the event lingered, a constant reminder that choices, no matter how small they may seem, can create irreversible effects and ignite a community-wide reckoning. Weeks passed, and the baby's recovery became the center of attention for the family, the community, and the authorities. Hospital staff reported steady improvement, small milestones that brought relief and hope to everyone who had feared the worst. The infant's tiny hands curled and uncurled, breathing stabilized, and color gradually returned to the cheeks. Every movement, every response to sound or touch was a victory, a testament to resilience in the face of extreme danger. Medical teams remained vigilant, aware that even after surviving the heat exposure, lingering effects could appear. Their careful monitoring underscored the delicate balance between survival and long-term consequences, reminding everyone that the ordeal was far from over. Meanwhile, the parents faced the mounting consequences of their choices. Legal proceedings moved forward with intensity, prosecutors presenting detailed timelines, medical reports, and witness accounts that highlighted the seriousness of the incident. The charges reflected not only the immediate danger, but also the broader pattern of neglect that investigators had uncovered. The courtroom became a stage where accountability was demanded, the parents' decisions laid bare for all to see. The weight of public scrutiny pressed heavily on them, their reputation and freedom hanging in the balance. Community outrage, previously confined to discussions and social media posts, now found formal expression in the pursuit of justice. The neighborhood remained deeply affected, the incident serving as a cautionary tale that would linger for years. Parents, caregivers, and community members reflected on the fragility of life and the responsibilities inherent in caring for children. Parenting classes and safety campaigns expanded, emphasizing vigilance, awareness, and the dangers of leaving children unattended in vehicles. Public service announcements and local media coverage amplified these messages, turning a near-tragic event into an opportunity for education and prevention. What had begun as an isolated act of negligence became a community-wide lesson on the consequences of carelessness. As the baby's condition improved, attention shifted to long-term protection. Social services monitored the home environment, ensuring that the child would be safe and cared for appropriately. Family members, neighbors, and advocates worked together to create a network of support, understanding that recovery required more than physical healing. Emotional care, consistent supervision, and a structured environment became essential components of the child's life, reflecting the community's commitment to preventing further harm. The baby's survival, once uncertain, became a symbol of resilience and the impact of timely intervention. In the end, the incident left lasting marks on everyone involved. The parents faced legal repercussions. The baby endured a fragile period of recovery, and the community absorbed a painful but necessary lesson in responsibility and vigilance. The story of the baby left in a hot car transformed from a private moment of negligence into a powerful narrative of survival, accountability, and awareness. The events, once unremarkable in the quiet suburban neighborhood, became a reminder that a few careless hours could nearly destroy a life and change an entire community forever. Even as life slowly returned to normal, the memory of that day remained vivid. A stark warning, a testament to human fragility, and a story of hope and survival against the odds.